will have the opportunity of nominating yet another candidate. The reason why that must be so is that if you went ahead with the option that the deputy governorship candidate moves into the shoes of the governorship and contests that election, you'll also be running foul of the Electoral Act, because the Electoral Act in section 141, for instance, talks about insists that no person shall be returned as a governor except such a person has, passed through all the stages before the election. But in that provision was inserted as one of the cardinal reforms in the 2010 electoral reform to deal with the Amechi case.
What the deputy governor... No, what you're implying here is that the APC would have to go back and begin all over with the primaries.
Yes. The reason is that no person can be returned as the governor, as a governorship candidate or the governor of the state, except he participated in all the stages. What are the stages? The stages include the primaries.
Mr. Ugwumadu,
in any case, sir, just let me learn.
Okay.
In any case, the deputy governor nominee is nominated after the candidate had emerged. So he didn't participate in the...
What I want you to look at is the time frame. You know, the Constitution and the Electoral Act also gives a timing for everything. For this situation now, INEC, let's say that the APC candidate did not pass. INEC would have had to conduct this within 14 days, right?
Yes.
Now, there's also a time limit to which the incumbent can stay in office before the swearing in of the next, assuming he doesn't win the election. But be that as it may. But if you're now saying this, APC would have to go back, conduct primaries. How long do you think it would take them to conduct primaries? Can they do that in 2 weeks? Then the elections, would that candidate be allowed to campaign? Then the elections will have to take place. Does it now mean that the tenure of the incumbent governor would have to be extended to make room for all of this? Or can all of this be done within 20 to 25 days?
Let's look at it this way. PDP has no problem.
Yes.
Their candidate stands.
So is the APC?
APC had a problem on account of the unfortunate demise of their candidate, of their governorship candidate. Before he emerged, it was a contest between him, I'm talking of Audu, and a few other candidates.
Okay.
Who was it, for instance, that was the second runner-up in that primaries? These are possibilities. Does it suit APC in their wisdom, given the totality of the situation they find themselves now, that the deputy governor candidate should step in as the governor? These are the primaries are the internal business of the political parties involved. And I'm saying that they didn't imagine that this will happen.
Yeah.
But the party was already, the party had evaluated the candidates from the array of contestants who came out. And if this has happened, they have an opportunity to revert to what they had done in the past, given the exigency of time to be able to...
Another issue might also arise.
And in that wise, you don't need more than that 2 weeks to be able to...
So they just pick the first one up.
You conduct it, you have it done.
But now, the other part of it might be that the running mate of Audu now, who was involved in the election, and which was declared inconclusive, leading to a rebound, leading to a supplementary election. What's the guarantee that he will not go to court, that he's been shortchanged?
Well, whoever will be advising him to do that should also look clearly at the position of the law. First is that deputy governorship candidate never conducted the primaries. I hope you understand that.
But he was involved in an election.
As a matter of fact, he enjoyed the joint ticket.
He was involved in an election because what the sections of the law that are being quoted by a lot of people, section 181, where it says if the man has run through an election and then he passes, his deputy steps in.
That is when the result has been declared and that joint ticket has been clearly established to be theirs. In that case, which is not the case here, in that case, he steps in. The way we find ourselves does not align with the earlier case which I described, where the governorship election, the polls had not started and the governor dies, in which case you can substitute, or where the election had been concluded. And if such a thing happens, the deputy governor moves in. Okay. This is a situation in which the election itself had happened, but it was declared inconclusive. In other words, no result, no official result, notwithstanding that we know who was taking the lead. So this is the exigency that we find ourselves in, respect of which these suggestions are coming up the way they are coming up.
But if you look at it critically, we're trying to look at some of these loopholes, and I go back to the inconclusive nature of this particular election, which you highlighted. But it would seem as if INEC is also, on track here, declaring that inconclusive, which makes the provision of Section 1811 of the Constitution of 1999 inapplicable in the circumstance. So should we be approaching the courts again for proper interpretation, the Supreme Court on this?
Well,
because we have two stand here. We're looking at the demise of late Audu, and we're also looking at the declaration of that election inconclusive by INEC. So whichever, it would seem as if the APC has opportunities, whichever they want to approach.
The good news is that we have a substantive
Attorney General
of the Federation who will immediately and proactively advise the government agency, INEC, on the appropriate step to take. It were a different thing if we had not. It is also in circumstances like this that the Attorney General can take the proactive step of urging the court to take a position such that even if you didn't have that in the express law, then the judicial position on such a situation will become part of the legislation as we move forward. And I think that the only challenge in that will be the issue of the time that he raised. But, there are very fast track processes by which you can get these things done as quickly as possible. 2 weeks may be too short for it. But the way to bury it is to say, if in the wisdom of the Attorney General of the Federation, and given the exigency of the time, there are ways by which the apex court, because there are constitutional cases as you can refer directly to the Supreme Court for interpretation, and it will be sorted out there. And then given the urgency of it. Now, that is one side. The other side is also to fall back on what we have practiced in the past, and that is the doctrine of necessity, to deal with this exigency just so that we are not stuck as we are bound to be in this circumstance.
Ugwumadu, legal practitioner, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me on this naughty issue. Quite recondite.
Anyway, time for us to go on a short moment here. When we return, we'll be looking at another very, very burning issue here in our polity. Stay with us.